They fired me to cut costs, ended up wasting 10x the budget, and got fired. I was a passionate content creator, eager to prove myself in the industry. In the early 2010s, video production was a slow and resource-heavy process requiring skill, patience, and the right equipment. I had recently landed a job at a university that wanted to build its online presence through YouTube. The pay wasn't great, about $2,200 a month, but I saw it as an opportunity to refine my craft and make an impact. From the start, I knew I was in for a challenge. My role wasn't just about editing. I had to handle everything: scripting, shooting, casting, and even composing music on outdated equipment that struggled to render even 720p videos. Despite the odds, I was determined to succeed. At first, my manager seemed supportive, but everything changed when she learned I was a smoker. Suddenly, she scrutinized my every move, setting impossible goals and undermining my work. Even though my videos were performing well, I was blindsided when I was fired for falling behind. Little did they know I had a plan. Not only would I walk away with a full year's pay, but I would also set in motion a series of events that would cost my former boss everything. I still remember sitting in the director's office, my manager beside her with a barely contained look of satisfaction. After months of relentless effort, sleepless nights, and working far beyond my official hours, I was being told that my work wasn't enough. That I had fallen behind. That my dismissal was the only reasonable course of action. The irony? I had produced the best performing videos on the university's YouTube channel, significantly increasing its engagement. Yet, because I hadn't hit an arbitrary, unrealistic quota, I was deemed unfit to continue. My protests fell on deaf ears. My manager, who once reassured me that quality mattered more than quantity, suddenly acted as if those words had never been spoken. The director trusted her completely, offering me nothing but polite regret before telling me that my last day would be at the end of the week. I felt anger, frustration, and helplessness all at once, but I quickly pushed those emotions aside. I wasn't going to walk away empty-handed. I had an idea, one that would benefit me in ways they couldn't even imagine. One of my responsibilities during my tenure was to maintain a database of production houses that could handle large-scale video projects. My manager, who had no background in media, had relied on this database whenever the department needed external help. If they were now looking to replace me with a professional team, I knew exactly where they would turn first. That gave me an opportunity. Before I left, I subtly altered the database, changing contact numbers and email addresses. I left only one and touched the one where my close friend worked as a junior director. He was talented but had struggled to land big projects. If everything played out as I expected, this would be his big break. After setting my plan in motion, I gave him a call. I laid everything out: how my former employer needed a production team fast, how they would be looking for a familiar name, and how he and his company could be the ones to get the contract. "I can help you win the bid," I told him, "but I need a standard finder's fee, 15% of whatever deal they sign." He didn't even hesitate. Done. Within 2 days, his company was invited to pitch. Thanks to my insider knowledge, I was able to guide him on exactly what to say, what themes to emphasize, what style the university preferred, and what budget range they were expecting. By the time his team presented their proposal, the director and my former manager were convinced they were the perfect fit. They signed a contract on the spot. The best part? This was no small job. Completing the remaining videos on time required an entire production team: producers, editors, camera operators, and sound engineers, all of whom needed to be paid industry rates. That meant my former employer was now paying double to triple what they had been paying me per video. My 15% cut from the contract was equivalent to 15 months of my old salary. It was a clean victory. I got a substantial payout while taking a well-earned break from the chaos I had endured. I had enough to fund a trip to Bali and put the rest toward enrolling in a prestigious film school overseas. As far as I was concerned, I had won. But the story wasn't over yet. A few months later, while enjoying my time in Bali, I got an unexpected call from a former colleague, the same one who had warned me about my manager's bias against smokers. Her voice was filled with barely contained excitement. "You won't believe what just happened," she said. "Your manager got fired. And the director? She's in serious trouble." I sat up, intrigued. What? How? Apparently, the project had gone massively over budget, far beyond what had been allocated. My manager, in her desperation to meet the original video quota, had approved every expense without consulting the director, assuming it was the only way to save face. By the time the chancellor of the university caught wind of the ballooning costs, it was too late. The department had spent over 10 times its original budget. The fallout was swift. My manager was fired immediately for gross mismanagement, while the director faced severe consequences for failing to oversee the project properly. What had started as their attempt to remove me and cut costs had resulted in the exact opposite. They had spent far more than anticipated, and both their careers suffered for it. As I listened to my colleague recount the drama, I couldn't help but smile. I had walked away with a year's worth of salary. My friend had secured a major promotion, and the people who had unfairly pushed me out had faced the consequences of their actions. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud or aggressive. Sometimes it's just knowing how to turn the system against those who try to take advantage of you. The next few days at work were a blur of emotions. The frustration of being unfairly dismissed gnawed at me, but I knew there was no point in dwelling on it. Instead, I focused on executing the plan that had taken root in my mind. Since I had handled all content production for the university, I had also maintained a database of trusted production houses. These companies specialized in video work, and while their services came at a premium, they could deliver quality content at a much faster pace. My manager, who had no prior experience in media production, would undoubtedly rely on my database to find someone to take over my work. This was the opportunity I needed. I discreetly modified the contact details in the database, ensuring that only one production house remained untouched, the one where my friend worked as a junior director. I had known him for years, and he was talented but struggling to secure major projects. This job could be his big break, and if he played his cards right, it would also serve as my way of turning this unjust situation in my favor. After finalizing the changes, I reached out to him. "I've got something big for you," I said over the phone. "But we need to plan this carefully." We met that evening to discuss the opportunity. I explained the entire situation, how I had been set up for failure, how my manager had already promised to hire an external production house, and how I had ensured that his company would be the one they contacted. His eyes widened as I laid out my plan. "This could be huge," he admitted. "But how do we make sure we get the deal?" I had already anticipated this question. "I'll coach you through the pitch. You need to highlight everything they want to hear: efficiency, quality, and most importantly, the ability to meet their impossible deadline." Since I had spent months working under those conditions, I knew exactly what the university expected. I helped him structure the proposal, refine his talking points, and emphasize how his company was uniquely equipped to handle the job. My insights gave him an undeniable advantage over any other competitor, though in reality they wouldn't even get the chance to bid. As expected, within 2 days, my former manager and director reached out to my friend's company, desperate to find a solution. With my guidance, his team delivered a flawless pitch, impressing both of them. They were amazed at how well the production house understood their needs, never suspecting that their newfound perfect match was the result of my behind-the-scenes work. A contract was signed on the spot. The university would pay a staggering amount for 50 videos in just 4 months, far more than what I had been earning. My friend's company, in turn, agreed to pay me a standard finder's fee of 15%. It was a win-win situation. He secured a major project that boosted his career, and I walked away with a significant payout. But the real consequences of my plan were yet to unfold. Part 3. With the contract in place, my involvement in the project officially ended. I had secured my payout. My friend's company was well on its way to producing the 50 videos, and my former manager had gotten exactly what she wanted, just not in the way she had imagined. For a moment, I considered stepping away entirely and moving on with my life. But then fate had other plans. About 2 months after I left, I received a call from my former colleague, the same one who had warned me about my manager's bias against smokers. She sounded almost giddy with excitement. "You are not going to believe what's happening," she said. "Your manager is in serious trouble." I raised an eyebrow. "Trouble? What kind of trouble?" She lowered her voice as if someone might overhear. "The chancellor just found out how much money was spent on the production project. It's bad." My curiosity was piqued. "Define bad." "Try 10 times the original budget bad," she whispered. She approved everything without getting proper authorization. The director backed her up, thinking it would all work out, but now that the numbers have been reviewed, they're both under intense scrutiny. I was stunned. I knew the university hadn't allocated a large budget for video production, certainly not enough to cover what my friend's company was charging. But I had assumed my manager had found a way to justify the expense. Clearly, she had been so desperate to meet the unrealistic KPI that she had bypassed all financial oversight, assuming no one would question her decisions. "What's going to happen to them?" I asked. "Well, your manager is already out," she said, barely able to contain her satisfaction. "She was fired this morning." "And the director?" "Let's just say the chancellor had a long talk with her. I don't know if she'll keep her job, but it doesn't look good." I couldn't help but smile at the irony. The same manager who had dismissed my concerns, undermined my work, and orchestrated my termination had now been caught in her own web of poor decisions. She had pushed me out to prove a point, and in doing so had set off a chain reaction that ultimately led to her downfall. After hanging up, I reflected on everything that had happened. Getting fired had felt like a crushing blow at the time, but in the end, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Not only had I walked away with more money than I could have ever earned at that job, but I had also helped my friend secure a major career opportunity. Justice had been served not through spite or direct revenge, but simply by allowing my manager's own arrogance and incompetence to run their course. With my unexpected windfall, I took a well-earned vacation, traveling to Bali to clear my mind and plan my next steps. The payoff from the production deal covered my expenses, and I still had enough left over to further my studies at a prestigious film school overseas. Instead of staying stuck in a toxic work environment, I now had the freedom to chase new opportunities. Looking back, the whole experience taught me several valuable lessons. First, when faced with an impossible situation, sometimes the best response is to step back and find a way to turn it to your advantage. Second, leadership matters. Bad management can bring down even the most well-intentioned projects. And finally, success isn't always about following a straight path. Sometimes, the detours lead to destinations far better than the ones you originally planned. As for my former manager, the last I heard, she struggled to find another job in the industry. Word had spread about her reckless decision-making, and no one was eager to take a chance on someone who had burned through a university's budget without proper oversight. Meanwhile, my friend's company thrived, securing even more contracts thanks to the credibility that project had given them. And me? I was finally free to build the career I truly wanted on my own terms. In the end, I didn't need to seek revenge. The system had a way of balancing things out. And as I sipped my coffee on a beach in Bali, watching the waves roll in, I realized that sometimes, the best payback is simply moving forward and thriving.